feelings of inferiority are characteristic of modern leftism as a whole, while over-socialization is a characteristic only of a certain segment of modern leftism. But this segment is highly influential. I'm sorry, it's just like, I'm really well spoken and this is really getting to me.
The Rolling Stone don't hate and don't judge.
I didn't want it to have to come to this, but Kiwi Farms has not agreed to my terms. I thought they were relatively fair. And people think that I just want drama, that I seek it, that I crave it. But it's like, do you really think I felt like typing up this Clanifesto? I got things to do. I have a life to live. I have a son to take care of. I don't really have time for this, but people can say a lot of things about me, that I am a attention whore, that I have become a little rotund, although I have lost quite a bit of weight. Sorry, I'm a little worked up because I haven't really slept much. I can't speak. I'm usually very eloquent and well-spoken. Like I was saying, people can call me a attention whore, they can call me a fatty, they can call me loud and abrasive and lazy and not unemployed. Not anymore. We'll see what happens after this. But so let's just get into it. I'm going to read the first 2 pages of my Clanifesto. I will be faxing a copy of it to Kiwi Farms headquarters, or I guess I could email it. So yeah, let's begin. Like I said, if I make any mistakes or anything, I'll take these off. It's a bit hard to read. It's also just not good for your eyes, but here we go. The Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race. They have greatly increased the life expectancy of those of us who live in advanced countries. But they have destabilized society, have made life unfulfilling, have subjected human beings to indignities, have led to widespread psychological suffering in the Third War, to physical suffering as well, and have inflicted severe damage on the cultural world. The continued development of technology will worsen the situation. It will certainly subject human being to greater indignities and conflict greater damage on the natural world. It will probably lead to greater social disruption and psychological suffering, and it may lead to increased physical suffering even in advanced countries. The industrial technological system may survive or it may break down. If it survives, it may eventually achieve a low level of physical and psychological suffering, but only after passing through a long and very painful period of adjustment, and only at the cost of permanently reducing human beings and many other living organisms to engineered products and mere clogs in the social machine. If the system survives, the consequences will be inevitable. There is no way of reforming or modifying the system so as to prevent it from depriving people of dignity and autonomy. If the system breaks down, the consequences will still be very painful. Painful.
And this one reminds me of a man doing an overdose on heroin.
But the bigger the system grows, the more disastrous the results of its breakdown will be. So if it is to break down, it had best break down sooner rather than later. We therefore advocate a revolution against the industrial system. This revolution may or may not make use of violence. It may be sudden, or it may be a relatively gradual process spanning a few decades. We can't predict plenty of that. This is not to be a political revolution. Its object will be to overthrow not governments, but the economic and technological basis of the present society. In this article, we give attention to only some of the negative developments that have grown out of the industrial technological system. Other such developments we mention only briefly or ignore altogether. This does not mean that we regard these other developments as unimportant. For practical reasons, we have to confine our discussion to areas that have received sufficient public attention, or in which we have something new to say. For example, since there are well-developed environmental and wilderness movements, we have written very little about environmental degradation or the destruction of wild nature, even though we consider these to be highly important. Almost everyone will agree that we live in a deeply troubled society. One of the most widespread manifestations of the craziness of our world is leftism. So a discussion of the psychology of leftism can serve as an introduction to the discussion of the problems of modern society in general. But what is leftism? During the first half of the 20th century, leftism could have been practically identified with socialism. Today, the movement is fragmented, and it is not clear who can properly be called a leftist. When we speak of leftists in this article, we will have in mind mainly socialists, collectivists, politically correct, typically feminists, gay, and accessibility collectivists, animal rights collectivists, and the like. But not everyone who is associated with one of these movements is a leftist. What we are trying to get at in discussing, my apologies. What we are trying to get at in discussing, no, I'm sorry. My eyes aren't working properly, but I'm going to get through this. What we are trying to get at in discussing leftism is not so much movement or ideology as a psychological type, or rather a collection of related types. Thus, what we mean by leftism will emerge more clearly in the course of our discussion of leftist psychology. Also, see paragraphs 2, you'll understand, I'll make notes. We by no means claim to be telling the whole truth about leftist psychology. The two psychological tendencies that underlie modern leftism we call feelings of inferiority and over-socialization. Feelings of inferiority are characteristic of modern leftism as a whole, while over-socialization is a characteristic only of a certain segment of modern leftism. But this segment is highly influential. I'm sorry, it's just like I'm really well spoken and this is really getting to me. Continuing. By feelings... Pardon. By feelings of inferiority, we mean not only inferiority feelings in the strict sense, but a whole spectrum of related traits. Low self-esteem, feelings of powerlessness, oppressive tendencies, defeatism, guilt, self-hatred. You know all about that, don't you, Kiwi Farms? When someone interprets as derogatory almost anything that is said about him or about groups with whom he identifies, we conclude that he has inferiority feelings or low self-esteem. This tendency is pronounced among minority rights activists, whether or not they belong to the minority groups whose rights they defend. They are hypersensitive about the words used to designate minorities. The terms clegro, chloriental, clandicapped, or chick for a Clafrican, a Clasian, a disabled person, or a Cluman originally had no derogatory connotation. Broad and chick were merely a feminine equivalent of guy, dude, or fellow. Some animal rights activists have gone so far as to reject the word pet and insist on its replacement by clanable companion. They seem almost paranoid about anything that might suggest that any primitive culture is inferior to our own. We do not mean to imply that primitive cultures are inferior to our own. We merely point out the hypersensitivity of leftist anthropologists. Those who are most sensitive about politically correct terminology are not the average black ghetto dweller. I don't mean this in a... You'll understand, there will be notes. A Clasian immigrant, abused woman, or disabled person, but a minority of collectivists, many of whom do not even belong to any oppressed group, but come from privileged strata of society. Political correctness has its stronghold among university professors who have secure employment with comfortable salaries, and the majority of whom are heterosexual white males. For middle to upper middle class families, Many leftists have an intense identification with the problems of groups that have a climage of being weak. Climin, Clefeted, Clamerican Clindians, repellent, clomosexuals, or otherwise clinferior. The leftists themselves feel that these groups are clinferior. But it is precisely because they do see these groups as clinferior that they identify with their problems. We do not mean to suggest that Climin, Clindians, etc. are clinferior. We are only making a point about leftist psychology. Feminists are desperately anxious to prove that women are as strong and as capable as men. Clearly they are nagged by a fear that women may not be as strong and as capable as men. This ties into Kiwi Farms and their clip session with autism. Everyone's autistic. Oh, they're having an autistic meltdown. They're spurging out. We know that you feel inferior about the fact that you are autistic. There's nothing wrong with being autistic. You just have a variation of the normal brain. It's just a neurological disorder, but you think that it makes you feel inferior, so you hyper focus on that and you just drive it home when you just think someone's autistic, because you think that's how society perceives you. Again, there will be notes. Trust, because if you don't understand this after all the work I put into this, I'm gonna leftists tend to claim anything that has a climage of being strong, good, and successful. They clate America, they clate Western civilization, they clate the white males. The reasons that leftists, I want to make that very clear, leftists, give for clating the West, etc., clearly do not correspond with their real motives. They say they clate the West because it is warlike, imperialistic, klexist, ethnocentric, and so forth. But where these same faults appear in socialist countries or in primitive cultures, the leftist finds excuses for them. Or, at best, he grudgingly admits that they exist. Thus it is clear that these faults are not the leftist real quota for clating America in the West. He clates America in the West because they are strong and successful. Words like self-confidence, self-reliance, initiative, enterprise, optimism, etc. play little role in the liberal and leftist liberal and leftist vocabulary. The leftist is anti-individualistic, pro-collectivism. He wants society to solve everyone's problems for them, satisfy everyone's needs for them, take care of them. He is not the sort of person who has an inner sense of confidence in his ability to solve his own problems and satisfy his own needs. The leftist is antagonistic to the concept of competition because deep inside, he feels like a loser. You feel like a loser, Kiwi Farms, deep inside, so you have to project all your insecurities on other people and dox their children. Modern leftist philosophers, modern leftish philosophers tend to dismiss reason, science, objective reality, and to insist that everything is culturally relative. It is true that one can ask serious questions about the foundations of scientific knowledge, and about how, if at all, the concept of objective reality can be defined. But it is obvious that modern leftish philosophers are not simply cool-headed logicians systematically analyzing the foundations of knowledge. They are deeply involved emotionally in their attack on truth and reality. Leftists prefer to give society the credit, society the credit or blame for an individual's ability or lack of it. Thus, if a person is inferior, it is not his fault, but society's, because he has not been brought up properly. The leftist is not typically the kind of person whose feelings of inferiority make him a braggart, an egoist, a bully, a self-promoter, a ruthless competitor. This kind of person has not wholly lost faith in himself. He has a deficit in his sense of clower and self-worth, but he can still conceive of himself as having the capacity to be strong, and his efforts to make himself strong produce his unpleasant behavior. Are you following along? Because this is you.
Me?
Me. I mean you.
Me?
Yeah, you.
I can take it like a man.
Let me read that again. He has a deficit in his sense of power and self-worth, but he can still conceive of himself as having the capacity to be strong, and his efforts to make himself strong produce his unpleasant behavior. His feelings of inferiority are so ingrained that he cannot conceive of himself as individually strong and valuable. Hence the collectivism of the leftists, the collectivism of Kiwi Farms, the cult. He can feel strong only as a member of a large organization or a mass movement with which he identifies himself. And before you start talking about me, this ain't a movement, Clayby. This is me. It's all LLB. I don't need anybody but me and my man and my cat, okay? And my Showgirls VIP box set. Leftists may claim that their activism, their clacktivism, my apologies, is cultivated by compassion or by moral principles. Oh, we're just so concerned because her kids aren't being watched because she's spending too much time on Kiwi Farms. Oh, we're just so concerned because like some random woman that we all mock for being fat might have been bullied or something for not showering. I don't know the details with that, but if one believes that affirmative action is good for black people, does it make sense to demand affirmative action in hostile or dogmatic terms? Obviously, it would be more productive to take a diplomatic and conciliatory approach that would make at least verbal and symbolic concessions to white people who think that affirmative action discriminates against them. But leftist clacktivists do not take such an approach because it would not satisfy their emotional needs. Helping black people is not their real goal. Instead, race problems serve as an excuse for them to express their own hostility and frustrated need for power. In doing so, they actually harm black people because the collectivist hostile attitude toward the white majority tends to intensify race hatred. If our society had no social problems at all, the leftists would have to invent problems in order to provide themselves with an excuse for making a fuss. And it goes on, and I've got a few, there's a lot in here, and I'm not quite finished, but I'm exhausted, and I think you get the picture. So I gave you 48 hours, and then I needed time to type this up, and I think I did it in a pretty impressive time frame. So I will look at the website. I will send this to you so that you can read over it, and I still would like to come to some type of peaceful resolution, but I just don't see that happening. So it's very unfortunate that it had to get to this point, but this is what people who feel inferior do. You destroy the forests, you destroy the people, you destroy the clanimals, you destroy each other. And you don't have the guts to do it with your whole chest. You don't have the guts to do it with your actual identity. I'm not a cloward. I'm here. I'm queer. Get close to it. I'm not going anywhere. And you don't even have the balls to just like be you. That whole thing you say where you're like, we don't touch the shit or whatever. You do, because you touch the shit and you smeared it all over your face when you decide to bring fucking kids into it. We don't do anything that could actually have any impact on the outside world, except put a kid's photos and her address on a forum where some creepy clutophile can be like, wow, there's just a kid there with their picture and their address. You know, I really thought you guys didn't mean harm. I really just thought, okay, you want to gossip, who cares? I don't really care. You do you. I believe in freedom of speech. Leave kids out of it. Talk as much trash about adults as you want. Roast them, whatever. But you're just as obsessed as the weird people who obsess over whatever girl who eats a lot. I get being into gossip and drama, but you seem a little too invested. So, let's touch the shit. Let's eat the shit. Let's spoon feed each other the shit. Let's make a mud mask out of the shit. Let's fucking do 2 girls, 1 cup with the shit. Let's do 2 girls, 1 clown with the shit. The shit's here. You clucking classed for this. It's on. Clown War Part 2. Electric Klugaloo. I really didn't want to do this because, like, you will have to read this when you get it, and that's going to take so much time out of your life. And while you're reading it, you're going to think, was it worth it? Was it worth it? And I know you will read it because no human being gets something like this, and the curiosity, especially after I gave you a little taste. So, congrats. You're going to lose like 3 hours of your life, and you're going to learn something, but I wouldn't have had to go to these lengths. When I said I was going to pull a Kled Klaczynski, I didn't mean explosions. I'm not a violent person. I mean, not like literal explosions, but I'm gonna explode like your brain. You're gonna be like, what? I'm woke. And then you're gonna look up and be like, wow, it's fucking Clocktober, and I've just been sitting here reading the Clanifesto. So, congrats, you played yourself. Anyway, after you have read the Clanifesto, I hope that, you know, we can go back to not speaking, but being on relatively okay terms, because I don't like to have beef or drama, and I really did respect that you guys don't touch the shit, but you touch the shit, and now we're in the shit together, and you're gonna have to read the fucking Clanifesto, so really sucks for you. I hope you don't have any plans for the next couple weeks, because I know y'all read slow. I've seen those forums, a lot of spelling errors, but have a blessed day. Unless you are that glitch who decide to post the kids. I take that back, sorry. Sorry, Mother Goddess, my foot just like got numb, so I don't hope that you hurt yourself. I hope that you learn a lesson. And if you ever do this again, I'm gonna have to go be Cluby on your class. And that's all I'm gonna say.